Keir Starmer has promised the largest house building programme since the post-war era, with dozens of new towns built by British workers.
Now, more than 100 possible locations have been suggested for these towns across England, each with the potential for 10,000 or more homes. Starmer has vowed to take on the NIMBYs and the Blockers. Good luck with that.
Well, the Prime Minister says he's inspired by King Charles and his overseeing of homes in the new sustainable town in Cornwall.
Well, we have got the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, and that is Richard Tice this morning, who's got a few things to say. And I think those would relate, Richard, as well, to the new towns. But you've got some interesting views on net zero and energy generation, and I have to say they surprised me. You tell me what you're proposing, and then we'll counter it. Okay, what are you after?
Well, obviously Reform UK wants to scrap net stupid zero overall, but as part of that, we're saying that these huge subsidies, we've got to reclaim those. So we'd put a windfall tax on all renewable energy generated by wind farms, by solar farms, by Drax power station. No one wants more ugly pylons on our countryside blighting our environment. So we've got to force National Grid to put the cables on the pylons that are proposed, put those underground. It's actually as economic, and so we will, when we win the next general election, which is the plan, we will force National Grid to put the cables underground, not install them above ground.
I understand that, Richard. I totally understand that, and it means that when the next storm comes along, we won't have power cuts, and there won't be all that business involved in putting them back up again and whatever. But I really am surprised that you're against the idea of you're having an idea of windfall tax on renewable generated power. What harm is that doing?
Massive harm, because renewable power requires huge subsidies, over 10 billion a year. That's about £300 or £400 per household per year because of renewable energy. Contrary to what we've been told by the eco-zealots, actually renewable energy is costing more. It's a basic, simple premise. Renewable plus backup must cost more than backup. We've all been ripped off. We've been misinformed. We've got to stop this nonsense. The only way to bring bills down is to lower the cost of living is to scrap net zero and scrap these huge subsidies that are paid to the renewable industry.
Well, the Conservative Environment Network has responded to your plans, saying that Reform UK's plans would actually cause household bills to skyrocket because it would pull the rug on energy firms. They say you should be unreleasing homegrown energy that can make us more energy secure and self-reliant and not block new supply and decimate investor confidence. They say the problem is not net zero, it's our reliance on expensive gas imports.
Yeah, why can't we have both?
Government intervention. What do you make of that?
Well, that's why the Conservatives got thrown out last year. They imposed the stupid net zero on the nation. That's why electricity bills have soared in recent years. That's why, sadly, they're going to go up again in April. The Conservatives are completely out of touch on this. We're the only party that knows how to bring down the cost of living, the cost of bills, by getting rid of these huge subsidies on these renewable. Just look across at America. Their electricity is about a quarter of our price. Why? Because they're using homegrown gas from America. We've got loads of gas, shale gas, oil. We should be using that. That's how you bring the bills down. That's how you grow the economy. You may have seen the economic growth figures out this morning.
Yeah, awful.
Another desperate quarter. Per person, we're now in the third year of recession.
Yeah, but I'll ask you this question. What I don't see, I understand what you're saying, and I wasn't really aware of how much we are paying towards subsidies. But the idea of renewable energy and being good for the environment, most people would be in favour of that in principle. I do understand we've got a debate when it comes to the cost. But why can't you do both? Why can't you say, well, ease a bit of this renewable energy in, solar farms, all that sort of thing? And why not have a bit of that and do what you're doing as well?
Well, the whole point of land, agriculturally productive land, is to grow food on it.
Yeah.
So that we get food security. You can't do that if you cover them with billions of solar panels that are made in China. Yes, put solar panels on the roofs of homes, on industrial units. That's fine. but we shouldn't be using productive agricultural farmland for solar panels. We make that very clear. And I repeat the point, Eamon. Clearly, renewable plus backup when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine must cost more than backup. Why are the British people being penalised? Why are the British people having to pay more when no one else in the world is doing this stupid? And the reason is because it's stupid. Most other nations sitting on energy treasure are extracting it as fast as they can go. This government, after the Tories before them, seem quite happy to leave our energy treasure underground. That's the reason we're getting poorer per person.
Is Ed Miliband stupid?
I'm afraid on this, yes, he is. It's as simple as that. We call him Ed Siliband.
Can I ask you about the government's plans for building? We're talking about new towns, 12 new housing settlements and 10,000 homes or more on each of those. Do you think this will solve the country's housing crisis?
Of course not, because this government, like the previous Tory government, have got an open borders policy, welcoming 700,000 more people into the country. These new homes they plan won't even house the increase in the population through mass immigration. What we've got to do is have net zero immigration, and then let's use our brownfield sites first in order to solve the housing crisis. There is a housing crisis which has been caused by mass immigration. We've got to use our brownfield sites first in order to build more homes. And if you get rid of these daft net zero regulations, you can bring down the cost of house building, which means you can bring down the cost of those homes. Another win-win.
Is it a win-win with Putin, Trump and Zelensky? These talks quite brave, quite brutal straight away. We don't know how they're going to progress, but they're happening.
That's right. And of course it's a win-win to try and stop the killing, to stop the slaughter, to stop the injuries and the destruction. The new administration is making it very clear that it wants to try and engage in discussions with President Putin. At the end of the day, most wars end with some form of negotiation, and what President Trump has done is start that process. Of course, Ukraine has to be central to it, and it's best to negotiate from a position of strength, but actually the US is in a position of strength, and let's see where this goes. But all of us surely want the killing to stop, and it's better to at some point talk after 3 years of killing.
So Richard, the thing about Putin and him being reintegrated, say, and hopefully all of this does come about and peace breaks out. But what about him being accepted back onto the world stage? I mean, would you be comfortable shaking the man's hand as a representative of the UK?
Frankly, no, I don't think so. I'd be wanting to count my fingers very carefully afterwards. Look, I think that's a whole different ballgame. First of all, let's try and stop the killing. But in terms of welcoming a brutal, murderous dictator back onto the world stage, I think that's a wholly different ballgame. I can't see that many people would be up for that for a very, very long time.
One step at a time.
What does this mean for Europe, Richard Tice, and what do you think it means for NATO?
Well, look, that's a very good question. And I think what it does mean is that all member nations of NATO have got to increase our defence spending. President Trump, quite rightly, has made that very clear after making it clear in his first term of office. In our contract, we've said we've got to get to 3% of GDP spending on defence. Other nations have got to do the same. And that's very important because the only way you guarantee peace is through strength.
Can I ask you about the GDP figures out this morning, just briefly, because we are almost out of time with you? Grown by 0.1% in this quarter. How would reform get growth into the economy?
These figures are dire after a flat third quarter last year. Per person, as I say, we're getting poorer quarter on quarter. To grow the economy, you've got to cut daft regulations, scrap net zero, freeze mass immigration, which is suppressing British wages, and we've got to use our own energy treasure, and we've got to cut taxes. But first of all, we've got to cut the vast amount of wasteful government spending, which is being so damaging for our economy. The the abuse of public spending, typified by somehow the public sector thought it was a good idea to spend £100 million on a bat shed.
So you want a Department of Government Efficiency, do you?
Absolutely right. We need to slash the size of the state, get rid of wasteful government spending, which I just see everywhere. Whistleblowers coming to us with the bad buying of government contracts, abuse. Far too many people are abusing the benefit system. Wherever you look, there is wasteful government spending. Bring down that wasteful spending, cut daft regulations, then you can cut taxes, and then we can grow again, as long as we're exploiting our own energy treasure. Do these things and we can be back to the growth levels of the 1980s and 90s of 2.5% to 3.5% a year. That's what America enjoys. That has to be a target. But to do that, we've got to copy America's economic policies, which I've just outlined.
And another target for Richard and Reform UK is scrapping net zero. Good to hear from you, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. We say goodbye to Richard Tice. Well, what do you think? Have your say, have your views?